It is the Anfield Wrap. It's Neil Atkinson with Mo Stewart, Rob Gutmann and John Gibbons this week. Really, really pleased to be doing this show. This is going to be a bit of a take stock moment. Now, if you're a long-term listener to anything, one of the things that you should work out in the fullness of time is if when someone like me on a day like today says it's a take stock moment, what that means is something that I thought would happen hasn't happened. So instead we're going to take stock. I thought that Milos Kerkez would be announced as a Liverpool player this morning. It has not happened yet at the time of recording.
Did you?
Yes. Oh. I thought they were going to do Kerkez today and Wirtz tomorrow.
Oof.
That's what I was pinning my plans on, and yet Kerkez has not happened at the time of recording. Maybe that'll change. Maybe the listeners are ahead of us. Maybe that's the way in which it goes. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to take stock. Are you ready for stock to be taken?
Stock taking.
That's what I want to know. Stock taking. That's what we're doing.
Do I need one of those brown overcoats?
Always.
Okay.
A pencil?
Yes. So you've heard Mo, you've heard the unmoisturised Gutmann, and you've got John Gibbons as well with us as we work our way through this all the way. And the transfer window, John, weirdly closes on Tuesday. And then it'll reopen again the following Monday. I've checked that out, so we're on top of those details. I wanted this general expectations I want to do first, and then we'll do the specific Liverpool bits and pieces. There hasn't been quite as much Club World Cup chaos as I expected there to be. Everyone's been a little bit calmer. I thought it would be all bedlam, and it may well be that a few sides have just sort of settled for what they can do, but maybe that'll change in the next 36 hours or so.
No, I don't think it will. I think it does look like it has been a little bit calmer. Obviously, Real Madrid have looked to pull a couple of things forward, not least Trent Alexander-Arnold. They obviously got the centre-half from Bournemouth in as well, and I think there's one other that they're trying to do, but it was more like what business we were going to do anyway, or players that would come in anyway. Can we get them done early? I think Chelsea have got one in today as well. Sarr on their 8-year deal that they love.
Sarr, which Sarr?
Oh, God knows.
I think it's a Strasbourg one.
Mamadou Sarr.
Is he Strasbourg?
Yeah.
That must have been a tough negotiation for them. Must have been fucking up nights trying to make that happen.
Yeah. So, but Crystal Palace is the issue. Get to let them play in Europe. So I think there's a couple doing a bit, but yeah, it's not been sort of quite as mad, and I think it is worth pointing out. I've done something really good with Lewis Steele already today that's going out is out now for subscribers, and.
Oh, wow. I'm going to listen to it. Can I listen to it now?
Yeah, just I'll probably talk 15 minutes to be honest with you, Rob, so you've got time. I've been away.
Is it about Florian Wirtz?
It is about Florian Wirtz.
Fantastic, can't wait.
He's been to Germany.
He has, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, Lewis Steele.
I know.
Florian's definitely been...
Oh, believe me, I'm tracking planes that Lewis Steele is on.
He's the hardest working man in show business. We talk about that. And anyway, so where was I?
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Lewis points out that for Liverpool it doesn't really make much difference. Like this is very much a 6-day close for the Club World Cup, and for Liverpool, well, we announced Frimpong before it even opened, so there's no reason why we couldn't announce sort of Wednesday, Thursday. But so for us, it's just a bit of admin that means, but we could still announce. It's not like we have to announce tomorrow and then we can't. Yeah, with Frimpong we announced before it would even open yet, and we can announce sort of Thursday and Friday. So it's even though it's 6 days, it'll just sort of blend in for Liverpool fans. But I don't think it has been much of a rush for others as far as I can see now.
Yeah, I thought it would be a little bit more. Now, there's some talk, and it may well bang into chatting about Darwin Nunez, that one of the Saudi clubs that's in the Club World Cup might want to make a move to get knocked back in quite intriguing ways, I actually think, by a few players. It seems like it is the players and not the clubs. Mo, we're bringing that about. So there is a chance that there could still be a little bit of something or other that hits in the next sort of 48 hours. But on the whole, I am sort of quite struck by the number of clubs who've just decided to keep the powder dry.
Yeah, I think so. But then I think this also kind of proves the folly of this kind of 6-day closure. I don't think anyone's taking it seriously at all. I think people are, although FIFA are saying officially you can't have a window longer than 16 weeks, everyone's just basically saying it's still open. So negotiations will still happen. As John was saying, it won't be maybe announced or officially rubber stamped in those 6 days, but it's pretty much a continuation. I think it also shows how little or how unserious most people are still considering the Club World Cup. I mean, obviously, there are clubs who want to win it and want to get all the prize money, etc., etc. But from the players' perspective, like players who've just done a really long season, who are probably literally on the beach right now are not rushing back from the beach to go and play in the Club World Cup. They're like, if you want me, I'll still be here in 6 weeks' time.
There's something in that, Mo, where they haven't been part of the journey to this date. You know what I mean? If you've done a season with the club and they're in the Club World Cup, then I think I was thinking about that the other day. Like, for instance, there's Ekiteke and Chelsea. And the idea that Chelsea want to get Ekiteke in for the Club World Cup. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with him. I've got no inside track. But one of the things that actually occurred to me was he might genuinely just have a holiday booked. Yeah. And he might genuinely just be looking forward to it. No, it sounds a bit... You genuinely...
No, absolutely. And also, this is the first one of these.
Yeah.
So people still really don't know how important or how interesting it is. And I think we've heard all the rumours about how the ticket sales have been slow and all of that gear. So if you're a player, you're obviously playing the long game as well. You're thinking, well, I'm not going to get a chance to rest next summer because it's the actual World Cup. So I'm going to actually prioritise having a rest this summer. If you're someone like Hugo Ekitike, you know how much pressure is going to be on you to come and start playing well for Chelsea. And so if him getting that extra month rest is going to help him hit the ground running in the Premier League and the Champions League rather than playing in this Club World Cup, then absolutely he's going to do it. I mean, it's not like Enzo Maresca's suddenly not going to pick him. And even if he was thinking along those lines, Liam Delap, who is going to the Club World Cup, how much is he going to really be able to say, well, I'm staking my claim because of these games over literal Premier League and Champions League?
Players look fed up, don't they? That's the truth of it. And I think, you've seen that from these recent internationals. Yeah, it was big for Portugal. I watched the Portugal-Spain game last night. I know you did, Mo, as well. And winning that obviously meant a lot to them. They're a proud nation. They're a small nation who punches above the weight internationally, and I think they're proud of that. But, that England game, I watched it. Do you know what? I was like, when I saw the team, and I was like, I want to see if Jordan Henderson's any good at footy. Like, I watched that. Yeah. So like, let's watch Jordan, see what he's like. And to be honest, it was hard to tell because he wasn't pressed a lot. But he can still keep it neat and tidy. I think it is fair to say. But they just looked fed up. And afterwards, the manager comes out and talks about attitude and stuff like that. But he wasn't really putting the boot in. I think he was just saying they didn't even really want to be there. And Harry Kane afterwards is speaking very honestly. And listen, he loves getting goals, doesn't he? Most strikers do. But so he's got another one and that'll feel good. But they just look like they're a bit fed up. And I think a lot of the players will go to this from the top clubs. I think it has to be said, Sai Hughes has written something really good in the Athletics today about a South African club who were going over and can't wait and looking forward to it. And you get that, it's a huge thing for them. But I think for a lot of the top European clubs, I think those early games are going to resemble that England-Andorra game, which is some footballers, maybe one or two, like Maduka in that one, who want to impress, and the others are like, what the fuck am I doing here?
I think it's interesting though, John, because people are expected to watch these games. I think you're right on the early ones. By the time you get to the last 8, I think there's a chance. And also, if you've got to the last 8, there might almost be an attitude of let's get this everything we can to win it at this point. But I still can't quite place how, what response is going to be to the event at all. And it's interesting that literally includes the footballers. Like, that conversation's being had about the potential people in the ground by the television audience globally. But question one is, what are the footballers thinking?
Yeah, and I haven't took a huge amount of interest, in it so far, largely because Liverpool are on it, if I'm honest with you. But I don't know what the group stages look like in terms of is the games that are going to sort of whet the appetite. Do we need Real Madrid to get beat by a team from New Zealand, for example, to get everyone going, or will it just make it just look like a little bit of a farce? That's the kind of thing that you want to talk about. And even when you get to sort of the knockout games, really, it is a little bit like, well, how seriously are these teams going to take it? So, there has been so much issues around it. Mo there talked about the ticket prices, the fact that they were struggling to find anyone to even show the games on telly. And then there's a little bit around that where it looks like a bit of a Saudi diddle and things. And so it is a funny one, and we will have to sort of wait and see. I think how Liverpool feel about not being in it or not, I think, would depend on who you speak to. It is a lot of money, and there is a sort of a lot of money there. I bet Arne Slot's made up. Apparently, he was at a 6-hour rave again last night. Craig told me the name of the DJ. I've never heard of him, but Craig and Arne Slot have. So
Liverpool then, where they find themselves is, as I said before, top of the show. I expect Kerkez to be announced today. I thought it might be first thing. Hence, we put our conversation out about Kerkez with James Roach this morning, which was an interesting and a good one.
I've listened to it. It is interesting and good.
Yes, thank you.
It's good to nail your KPIs there.
You set out for it to be interesting and good, and it was both.
Excellent stuff. I mean, James did all the heavy lifting. James did all the heavy lifting. I think that there is, though, a general expectation that Kerkez and Wirtz are getting announced this week, Rob. And from there, it will mean Liverpool's stage one of this transfer window with Frimpong, Kerkez and Wirtz has been hugely successful.
Okay, let's go back to the expectation bit and the timing bit. I still don't, having been a transfer watcher since I was in diapers, I still don't understand the pacing of them really. Some happen ridiculously quickly. You think, well, where the hell did that come from? And, you hear a rumour in the afternoon. By the next morning, there's a medical and he's being presented for 24 hours later. But Kerkez quietly has been a done deal for about 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, really, feels like it's a done deal. Frimpong was a done deal. Still took about 2 or 3 weeks for it to get announced. So I just don't know. I mean, this Wirtz one... It's interesting, but the reporting at the moment seems to be that the quantum, the top line value of the deal is agreed. I think from the German media they're saying something akin to 150 million euros is more or less agreed. I think I'm right in saying. Mm-hmm. But what element of that is add-ons, and the payment stream and how easy those add-ons are to achieve is still being negotiated. Now, I don't know how long this could yet take, Neil, because at the end of the day, unless you sit in a room and you go, let's just get round the table and box this off. Unless they're doing that, I think that you've got to leave a little bit of a gap to go. I want all the add-ons to represent 20 million. Somebody goes, we were thinking more like 25 million. You go, well, we disagree. So how long do you take to sort of to bridge that gap? I think you probably leave a couple of days in between each paragraph or line to an extent. So I would not be surprised if this goes on for a little bit longer. I really hope it does, and I hope it's done this week. But trying to set our clock by it, I just don't know how. I think the important thing is, I do think you can say with Kerkez and Wirtz, without wanting to tempt fate, well, we are at a stage where the players themselves are hugely mentally committed to the LFC project and have agreed personal terms behind the scenes. That side of it is done. Always the hardest part of the deal in many respects. Both their clubs buy into the idea that they're letting those players go. So to all intents and purposes, this is business done by Liverpool. But the timing is anybody's guess.
So I think the interesting thing from most of the reporting we've heard is that both sides, in the Wirtz deal in particular, have said that they don't want to compromise. Leverkusen are adamant that they want this price. Liverpool are adamant that they don't want to go to the top price that Leverkusen said. But no one has talked anything about walking away. The conversations have been ongoing at every stage. Whenever there's been even something that sounds a little bit negative, that's been followed up with conversations are ongoing. Both sides expect a deal to be done. So they are crawling towards some kind of compromise, which means that probably both sides are going to have to climb down a little bit from what they initially wanted in order to try and get some kind of face-saving agreement. With Kerkez, I think the interesting thing for me is that from all along, the Bournemouth price has been a 45 million, but from all along, again, we've heard Liverpool don't want to pay 45 million. Whether that means Liverpool wants to pay 40 million, whether they want to pay 41 million. And for a lot of us who are on the outside, this all seems really petty and exhaustive. It's like, why are they haggling over 1 or 2 million? Well, my theory on that is, well, guess what? Every single million matters. Every single pound matters. And do you know why every single pound matters? Because Liverpool got more to do. Like, if this were the only 3 deals Liverpool were doing, then I think that we'd be seeing a lot less haggling on money and finances. But Liverpool have got so much more to do going in and going out. And, for example, if they have an ideal number for what they want to sell certain players at, if they are struggling to get to that number, if they've made every single penny count in the first 3 deals, maybe they've got a little bit more wriggle room with those deals going further on. And I think from Liverpool's point of view, these ones, as Rob said, the players are committed. The clubs are largely accepting that these players are going to move. So these are quote unquote easier deals to do. Maybe there are more difficult deals than this to come, and so Liverpool want to make sure they've got as much wriggle room as possible for when those come along.
Yeah, I mean, optics matter in these sorts of things as well. For the selling club, they want to be able to tell a story, but for Liverpool as well, if Liverpool get a reputation of someone who'll just pay whatever another club asks or agree to whatever the club asks, then that it does hurt you in the future, stuff like that, and it's a hard thing to then reverse. It's similar with wages. You see it, other clubs where the just expectation is, well, this is what you pay, and so I think for Liverpool, I think they enjoy their reputation as getting good deals, and getting good deals sort of for the football club, not out of ego, but out of this idea of for future negotiations. But at the same time, you've got another club, Leverkusen, have got to think about their optics. They've been very resolute on what they want for this footballer, and they've got to think not just about how it looks for this sale, but also for future ones as well. And so it's all playing a game a little bit, really, and everyone wants to not just, like Mo says, get every get the best sort of financial deal, but also how it looks to your own supporters, how it looks to existing players who might be sort of starting to look at about getting. I think having a reputation as a good selling club, I think is important as well. Internally as much as anything, really. And so it is all that complicates stuff a little bit more than does sometimes as fans we think. But I disagree slightly with Rob. I think they will both be announced this week.
Oh, I hope they'll be announced. I'm just saying I can't know, and I don't think we can know that easily. There is a third factor in all this, and the factor that can influence the timing is the player himself. Because although he's not directly involved in the negotiations on a price, at the point he agreed to sign with Liverpool, that he wanted to sign for them, they will have discussed the fact that his club needed to be paid a certain amount of money and by a certain amount of time. So Florian Wirtz and his father and whoever is involved in his team are not going to say, yeah, Liverpool, we'll come to you, you just take your time and lowball Leverkusen all summer long and we'll just sign when we sign. They will have set a long stop date by which they expect this to happen. Likewise, he'd have said with Leverkusen, you want to sell me this summer and you think you can realise a good price, well, it's got to be at a price that doesn't alienate the club I choose to go to. So there are those sort of side deals which will affect the timing of this deal, because the player will have put long stop dates on this. He won't. If I was him, I simply wouldn't tolerate either club allowing me to just be a pawn in a game that they take all summer long about doing. So if you ask me to bet, I would actually broadly agree with you that it could well happen this week. I just can't tell, and I suppose what I'm saying is I wouldn't be surprised if it took a further fortnight, but it shouldn't take much more than that. And if it does, then we might be in a worrying place.
I'm of the view, John, another moving part of this is Liverpool, and not just Liverpool, all clubs, but Liverpool are one of the biggest football clubs in the world. You have rightly argued on the radio the biggest, which, Balgay never saw coming. But the numbers, one key number is in your favour, which is that Liverpool get more social media engagement than any other club on the planet. And I think that part of what has to happen for both of these players, obviously Wirtz could well be the biggest transfer in Liverpool's history, so that's a big part of that as well, is they'll want to get their own imaging, their own branding, their own look and feel absolutely spot on. I think for both of them, we already saw some of this around the Frimpong move. We've saw it with the contract negotiations of Salah and Van Dijk. And I think, John, that another part of this will be Kerkez needs to come over. They need to do all the stuff that they're going to do. They need to get it all lined up and boxed off. The same thing will be happening with Wirtz, who was playing a game of football yesterday. But at some point, he's going to want to go on holiday and knows he gets a holiday. And I think that's the other reason why I agree with you. I expect both of them to be done this week, because I think that the footballers will be saying, we need to get these sorted out now. Thank you very much.
Yeah, announcing it last week is, from that point of view, is no good to anyone, really, because the international teams don't want the distractions. And again, it comes down to respect a little bit, and Liverpool pride themselves on being spoken well of from other clubs that they deal with, but I'm sure that goes to internationally as well. So, Hungary, for example, we're going to have 3 players, this time 2 weeks, play for the Hungarian, football team. And so that relationship now is important. And so announcing while he's there, they wouldn't have been too happy with. But also, if it does happen, it's like, okay, well, you can put something out, but do it quickly type thing, or put something out. You can announce it, but that's it. And like you say, that's no good to Liverpool. It's no good for Kerkez. You look at someone like Wirtz. This is our biggest, transfer in decades, really, and so it's not 4 lines on the club website, is it? It's like you say, it's the excellent media team at Liverpool getting creative and thinking of what are the next things that they can do. They put Mo Salah on a throne for a contract extension. Do you know what I mean? Like, what are they going to do for Florian Wirtz? I don't know. They'll come up with something, but all of that is stuff that they want to do, and so it doesn't suit.
And they want to do right because it matters to them. Whether there might be some people listening to this saying, "Well, that doesn't matter," or "That's not a big deal. That's not this or that's not that." But Liverpool's partners, for instance, want to see Liverpool get more social engagement than any other club on the planet.
Well, you talk about statement signings as well, and I said this again to Lewis this morning. Said this is a statement signing, and how you make that statement is you make the statement big. And obviously, listen, what really matters is what he does on the pitch, and we all expect him to do phenomenally well, and that's what will be remembered rather than the unveiling. And so, but the unveiling is sort of what's coming up, and they will want to go big on it. They will want to really push ourselves out, and so I think they'll want it before the World Cup Championship starts, because then you compete with something that's a bit of a unknown. So they want it sort of going out then, and they want to be saying, listen, everyone wanted this guy, and he's come to Liverpool, and look at us. And the more he can say, in that interview, the better as well. So, it's all maybe part of modern football that people don't like, but I prefer it when Liverpool are good at it than when we were shit at it. Put it that way, because it seems to be more beneficial.
All right, Rob, I want to talk about the outs. I want to start off with Elliott, who's made a few comments, which, as so much of what he says are a credit to him. Says he wished he'd played more, would like to have played more last season, but says I can't argue with the manager, he won the league, which is precisely the spirit in a number of ways. But suggests that he feels as though he does need to leave for the next stage of his career. It's interesting he's spoken now. It'll end up being he's made 147 appearances for Liverpool. We've got to be careful with that, because we know part of the issue for him is that there aren't tons of 90s. But there's 147 appearances, and in a number of those appearances when he comes off the bench, he makes a hugely positive difference and positive contribution. So I think it's important in both ways. We've got to acknowledge it's not the start he'd have wanted, but we've got to also say he very much has played his part through his Liverpool career. I think it's 147 times you played for Liverpool. That's quite a... If he does move on, I think he can move on with a ton of pride and feel as though he's had a really rather good Liverpool career. A lot of players don't get one as good as Elliott when you look at everything.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good person, Harvey Elliott. He comes across so well. He's a credit to... It's a cliche. He's a credit to his family and to himself, but he's mainly been a credit to Liverpool Football Club. I don't want to talk about it like it's his obituary, what have you, but as you said, quietly, it's a Liverpool career he's had, and he's such an open person. I think that's what makes him so likeable. I genuinely believe, unlike certain other people we won't talk about, that he is a Liverpool supporter and will remain a Liverpool supporter, and will leave with the heaviest of hearts. I wish there's a way we could find to ask him to stay one more year. I get 100% why he wouldn't. He's absolutely right. He needs to play. I think his father, who is a passionate Red, would also be very, very heavy-hearted in saying, "Son, you've got an incredible gift, an incredible talent, and you do have to find a way of expressing that. You have to find your stage." Liverpool were lucky with midfield injuries last season. I don't think, am I right saying nobody got injured apart from Harvey himself? Now, had that happened to one of the other four, I don't think Harvey would be asking for a move this summer. It's that kind of a sliding doors moment. He missed the first 10, 12 weeks of the season, I think, and then spent the next 10 weeks trying to regain his form and fitness. Had that happened to Curtis Jones or Alexis McAllister, just pick two names, Harvey Elliott would have played a shitload of football. And he came out of the pre-season looking arguably Liverpool's most impressive performer. I think the manager was genuinely impressed by him. So there, but for the grace of God, goes Harvey Elliott's Liverpool career. there's a part of me. Look, I'd like Liverpool to raise funds to buy great footballers, and I can see how bringing Florian Wirtz in doesn't help Harvey Elliott's chances of playing more football matches for Liverpool. So it is probably the right time for him to go. You and I have spoken, Neil, about this. Of all the players we've sold, apart from the ones you definitely don't want to go because they were superstars who were prized from us, like Luis Suarez or Torres or even Raheem Sterling, here's a sale we'll make willingly of Harvey Elliott, hopefully for good money, that I don't necessarily say we'll come to regret it, but I wouldn't be surprised if we come to regret it. I wouldn't be surprised if in 3 years' time he's absolutely ripping it up for a world top 6 club and he looks unbelievably elite. Don't know what I'd put a percentage chances of that happening on are, but it wouldn't surprise me.
I would be surprised if any deal doesn't involve some kind of buyback area, because I do think, like you, he feels like if you give him a situation where he can get 30 or 40 league games, all starts the season for a team playing in Europe, then he could definitely go up a couple of levels. I mean, I keep thinking that, in fact, he is 22, so you could almost see a world where he goes away, plays 6 years for someone else, and then maybe has 2 contracts, and then maybe thinks about coming back. And then maybe Liverpool look at him coming back. And I know that a 28-year-old midfielder aren't normally the kind of Liverpool buy, but Liverpool bought James Milner when he was that age, and it did all right. And you can see a world in which he comes back and fulfills a not dissimilar role, because, as you said, the passion he has for Liverpool is very, very much real and very strong. Sometimes it's just a shame. Sometimes football just doesn't work out the way we all want it to. And I think if I'm Harvey, there's 2 players who I keep thinking about all summer. One of them is Curtis Jones. Think about how long it's taken him to get into that England reckoning. And that's only happened now because he's finally actually getting some proper minutes for Liverpool. And ironically enough, that happening for him probably means it's likely to happen for Harvey, because there were times over the last 2 years of Klopp in which it was pretty much one come in, one would go out of those 2. And the other one I'd be thinking about, and even more so, is Scott McTominay. Look at what Scott McTominay has just done, going to Napoli, winning the league, becoming Player of the Year for a team and a system that really suits him in a league that really suits him. And if I'm Harvey and I'm Harvey's dad, I'm saying, Scott McTominay's a lot better than me. I could go out there and find a club who can do. I could do that. I could star in that role. And I think that's probably what he will have to do.
There is the luck, the sliding doors, whichever metaphor that people want to use in the end. John, he's starting Elliott at the start of the 21-22 season, and then he gets the terrible injury at Leeds, and he never really gets his place back. He gets a few appearances towards the end of the campaign, but the manager has gone with him. He's really, really gone with it and backed him at the start of that campaign, and then it ebbs away because of the injury. This season, again, I thought he looked like he was going to be integral in pre-season. I could say exactly how it could well work with and for him. And the injury again, and it feels as though it never quite gets there. If you're him, though, this is back to the sort of the fragility of the career. If he is thinking about his career, you might even say, well, it's quite early. And I thought he might choose to do one more year at Liverpool. But I can sort of see why, given those 2 examples that I've just cited. If you are him, you are thinking, this thing is a little bit precious and I could do with cracking on, whilst he has managed to fulfil, as I say, 147 appearances and the honours that he's been part of. It becomes a really, really good Liverpool career.
Yeah, it's a great Liverpool career, but he's got to be honest and look at it and think, well, what's best for him. And he got frustrated last year. You know, I'm sure he won't mind saying, when I interviewed him just before the Carabao Cup final, he was very good on camera, but speaking to him a bit before and after, you know, we got to know each other over the years. You could tell he was frustrated, like, do you know what I mean? And you could tell he was a bit like, you know, didn't even completely understand it, really, like why he wasn't, you know, even getting off the bench kind of sometimes. I mean, that come off a back of a decent little period where, you know, he'd obviously got the goal in Paris just a week or so before. But it's been tough for him, and I think the Wirtz thing just must feel like the final nail in the coffin, where he's just looking at it and thinking, well, how's, you know, it's going to be worse next season. I was half hoping it'd be better, you know, circumstance change and things like that. But it looks like it's going to be tougher. And you know, you could say we'll have a big pre-season, but like you all pointed out, he had a big pre-season last year. I thought he did great, and then he doesn't even get a minute, I think, in the first league game, and maybe even the first few. So
Harvey's injured, isn't he, for those?
No, he's on the bench
for the first for at least the first one.
Yeah. He's on the bench for Ipswich and doesn't get brought on, because I remember being really surprised. And so the injury happens a little bit later, but those first 3 games he goes. He pretty much just goes with one team for the first 3, and then I think it's coming back off the international break where he might get a chance.
During that break, he got injured for England, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it's during that break he gets injured, but in those few games he doesn't. I don't even think he gets on. Certainly doesn't get on against Ipswich. So it's hard to tell yourself that story, and you'll be looking at it, and there's still a little bit of a. Where does Harvey Elliott think his best position is? Like that's an interesting one to me, because he broke through as kind of a widey forward. Does he want to play 10? He's a converted midfielder, and he bought into that. But that was how Jurgen saw him, a mixture of Jurgen and Pep Linders, who wanted to make the team more technical and brought him deeper. But he might not agree. He might go, do you know what? I think I'm a 10, or I think I'm whatever it is. I don't know. He might think he's a fun goalie for all I know. But you know, who's going to play me there? Who's going to come and speak to me? You know, in the summer, and or speaking to him already, who's saying, do you know what? I don't just think you're a great player. Like, what do you want to do? Yeah, we can see that as well, and we can not quite build a team around you, but you'll really get the best out of what's better for you. And I think that's something that we need to consider as well, because, you know, this midfield thing, he might just want to knock on the head completely. For all we know, I don't know.
He's too good a footballer to be a goalie, John.
I mean,
just be clear.
In all seriousness, as you think about the clubs he could move to, there's almost no one who's too good for him. Do you know what I mean? Most of the I mean, even Arsenal could use Harvey Elliott in a way, quite frankly, and he could force his way. I'd hate to see that happen. I'd like him to forge a career. Lots and lots of certainly, top 6 teams who've fallen on hard times, who desperately need good players like Man U or Tottenham. They should be breaking the bloody bank for Harvey.
I think Newcastle should buy him.
I was going to say, we boxed it the other day.
We boxed it the other day. Me and Mo had a chat. Newcastle should buy him.
Yeah.
Pick him ahead of Jacob Murphy. Still got Jacob Murphy to alternate. If you wanted to be more expansive in a game, you could drop Elliott into the 10 position, and then you could play Murphy on the right or something else. Honestly, me and Mo got this all boxed off.
Oh, good.
We sorted out so much of the nation's football in a 5-minute conversation.
That is a relief.
Have you rung his dad?
We just moved some pieces around, and suddenly every team was better. Bad news for Liverpool, John.
Do you think there's a universe, in all seriousness, where he doesn't move because nobody will pay the right money? If I were Liverpool, I would go, yes, fully understand your frustrations, Harvey, but unless we get X, we're not going to guarantee you're getting moved on. Or do you think they'll do him a service?
I just think clubs will want him, because I think he's really good.
Yeah,
so I don't think he's going to be short of suitors. I think.
At the value Liverpool want, though? I don't know.
I think the bigger thing is,
I think he's great.
To John's point, I think it's more. So, for instance, I could see how if I was Wolves, I'd end up going, you know what, we've sold Cunha, Harvey Elliott makes a ton of sense, and we can put 50 million on him. I could see that journey definitely happening. It's just whether or not Harvey might go, yeah, but you did finish 15th, 16th, boys. I'm not quite sure about that one. That's where, but players back themselves. But I think, and I think that to your, to the Tottenham point, to wherever you want, I think there's, and the overseas points, most Italian points, somewhere, I think there's loads and loads of clubs who would be better at football if Harvey Elliott played for them.
You look at the money that Brighton and Bournemouth spent last summer, like Bournemouth, was one of the biggest spenders, Brighton had the money, and so they've shown that they'll spend it, and they'll have money coming in because they're both selling, some of them to us. And so if you're Bournemouth, you might go, well, we could take a chance on someone, and we can get this guy in who we know is going to be really good. Can Bournemouth sell it to Harvey Elliott? I don't know. Can Brighton? I think Brighton probably can, because I think Brighton have got a decent body of work now to say, like, we're a team who finishes on the edge of the European places. And that's, you'd be more shocked if Brighton finish 14th and 4th next year, wouldn't you? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because of how they've gone. And so, yeah, I think someone like Brighton, I agree with Mo. I think he should go abroad, but I think like that. Lewis again talks about it. That group of teams who finish 5th, who aim to or will finish 5th to 10th next season. Like you could make an argument for any of them to go for them and to spend the money.
I just think that you're right to say there are that many teams who would be willing to do it. There's going to be a sweet spot between a team willing to pay the money and a team that Harvey thinks can help him.
Yeah.
And I do think that he's going to prioritise European football personally, and he should prioritise European football because
Champions League football.
Yes, well, if possible. So again, you might be looking at. I'm not sure where Juventus are with their management. I'm not sure what the new manager wants, but they would be the kind of club that I'd be looking at. Definitely, obviously, may well be in the situation where a lot of their teams broken up, like Çalhanoğlu's getting on, Mkhitaryan's getting on. You quite see a place next to Nicola Barella in that team for him. I think that these are the kind of things that he should be aiming for. It might be that he has to go longer into the window in order to secure that, because it might be that the Brightons and the Bournemouths are more likely to put the money up straight away, and he might think, well, I might want to hang out and see if anyone else better comes along.
I think if you're him, though, the one thing I would say, if you're him, and I think there's some players this doesn't apply to, but if you are him, you want to be there first day of pre-season at your next club.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah,
I think that's an important detail. I think if you want to be there first day of pre-season at your next club, I think there's some players, Nunez being one, where you could imagine, you know, you just sort of rock up in mid to late August and go, right, well, I'm turning up now and you're buying me because you want me to do this.
Yeah.
But, and, you know, Nunez, I think he might be part of some madness in the next 48 hours, Nunez, one way or another. I think that's for the same reason that I'm almost saying, it's just a different type, just an earlier bit of madness.
And it might end up being that because of that, who he's speaking to, the manager that seems the most desperate to use him and to get him, may end up being the one who ends up getting him. Because again, I think that's something as well. I think it needs to be a manager who's secure in his job, who's not going to get sacked 3 months later, but also someone who believes in his talent and is going to say, I really want you to come in and help shape the future of my team.
Jonathan Liu wrote something excellent about Nunez prior to the Carabao Cup final, John, where he said that that football is about the accumulation of memories and moments, not numbers. Nunez, he almost manages to test this principle to the point of extinction. You know what I mean? He very much is. He's almost a line on it over the course of his Liverpool career. It's another genuinely odd Liverpool career. I'd be stunned if he's even around for pre-season at Liverpool, but certainly if he's around for the start of the season at Liverpool, not least because of the fact that the next time he plays a league game, Liverpool have got to give Benfica money, which I just can't see them being open to. But there have been, if you want to accentuate the positive, there have been just some absolutely incredible moments in football grounds.
Yeah, you can't keep him out the action in many ways, can you? And to be honest, the performance of his that concerned me the most were actually towards the end, where he just wasn't in games at all, and I was like, well, this isn't just Darwin Nunez. Do you know what I mean? Like, say what you wanted about him, but you used to notice him. Do you know what I mean? Whether he was like doing something great or headbutting someone, like and everything, but all the offsides in between. But then towards the end, he just looked like he didn't really know what to do with himself, really, and so that's when, for me, along with the weird performance of Villa, was when the writing was sort of on the wall, really. I think it is a weird Liverpool career, but in another way, it's not, because he's just a player who's quite good but not quite good enough. And I think that's where it sort of drills down to, really. He's not quite good enough in an unusual way.
Yeah.
Because we've seen plenty of evidence of his talents, and when he's on it, he's such a nightmare for defenders. You can talk yourself into, and I did for a while, that there's a player there and there's a real asset there. But Liverpool's level now is so high that I don't think that the manager is willing to carry someone who he doesn't know what he's going to get out of, and he doesn't trust to deliver excellence on a week-by-week basis. And it's similar to for a lot of these players that we're going to discuss. You know, you can be a really good footballer, but not Liverpool level. And I think Liverpool level has got higher, and it's got higher under this manager, which is brilliant. And a few are going to suffer, and a few decent young players are going to be let go because they don't think the pathway's there for them to sort of deliver for Liverpool. And then some others, like Darwin, like Harvey, maybe for a little bit as well, where they just don't think you're just quite there. Like, I think the Wirtz thing shows. I think we want the best player in the world in every position, and that's hard.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, that's difficult, and you might not get there, but I think it's the aspiration.
I think this manager, we've seen from the get-go, he's quietly very ruthless and binary in his assessment.
You saw it last summer, didn't you, Rob? The players, he just sort of shit. He was like, see you later, ta-da.
Yeah, he basically decides, you're my best players, you're going to play. Now, if one of them drops out through injury or I need to make a change, any lad who comes in is auditioning. And if he fails that audition, next. You know, it's that ruthlessness. I think he creates a climate of subtle competitive pressure, which means you get the very best performances out of people. But it means that if you fail these auditions, there comes a point where you're just out. And we saw it with Darwin. He was all but frozen out. We saw Harvey getting frustrated, all but not entirely frozen out, but just getting less and less and less time. Chiesa, obviously, a case in point. And because the manager likes to stick to his core, if you're failing the 1 or 2 or 3.5 auditions he'll give you, it's goodbye time. It's that simple. And you can see how it eats at confidence. That's the downside of it, because the likes of Nunez, their performances, as you rightly say, have tapered off, and his audition performances got worse and worse. But I think the upside is we get the best player in every position in the world, in theory.
Okay, on that, the Anfield Wrap on transfers all the way through the summer. Gutmann is doing gutters when he's around, and not in the lakes or Portugal or New York or whatever else.
Even when he's there, he's around.
Even when he's in those
thanks to
places,
the magic of Zoom,
he's around. Even then, he makes the magic happen at all times, all the way through the summer. Well, most of the way through the summer, occasionally.
An enormous amount of the summer. Huge percentage of the summer.
He's sticking up for himself, which is it's noble.
Someone's got it.
Unsurprising, really.
Yeah, noble. Tons and tons of specials we've made reference to. James Roach and Lewis Steele today on Kerkez and Florian Wirtz. That happened, and there was tons of them last week as well. Kevin Hatchard on Florian Wirtz was a joy to do all the way through, because Kev's great, but also because he was so glowing. And me and Mo started doing top 6 last week, which is afterwards was where we worked the world out. When we had a bit of a chat afterwards.
In future, we'll be doing it on the shows as well.
You can aspire to it. Hey, Mo, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's all growth.
We don't want to give too much away, though. We don't want to make the rivals strong, and we don't tell them that this is exactly what you do, and it just goes there, and there, and suddenly you'll be absolutely nailing it. All that stuff is all the way through the summer, so if you want to subscribe to the Anfield Wrap, you can do it through the app, or you can go to theanfieldwrap.com/subscribe, and you'll be able to see it there. Just want to discuss a couple of others quickly. Mo Morton has had a mention. Bournemouth was mentioned before. It wouldn't surprise me if Ben Doak ends up playing for someone like Bournemouth, that sort of level going into next season, of the younger players in there as well. McConnell is another one where I think there's a question mark. I can see a world where McConnell's still playing for Liverpool next season, but I can also see Liverpool deciding that his Liverpool journey is done. All of these lads, again, have had slightly odd Liverpool journeys, but a couple of them at least. McConnell, for instance, in that brilliant League Cup final, which is obviously a high point for Elliott, even in an odd way, whilst not playing, a high point for Nunez. There is.
It's going in his highlight reel.
It's going in his highlight reel, 100%. There is, I think, with it, some big decisions to be made, but I am expecting those decisions to be made, and I am expecting all of the players I've just mentioned to be leaving.
Yes, some of them may be leaving to come back, some of them may be leaving permanently. When Rob was talking just now about the ruthlessness of the manager, I was thinking of Tyler Morton, because essentially he was kept around as an emergency in case break class, in case we get some midfield injuries, and that never happened. And there was so many points in the season where you think, okay, well, he's going to have to maybe give him a chance to see how he feels about him, if he's going to use him. Are we going to continue to keep using Ryan Gravenberch in every game, or is he going to start looking at options? And he never got that chance. I mean, there were maybe a couple of League Cup games. And Tyler is a very, very calm, mild-mannered young man. But to hear the quotes that he was saying, he was clearly fed up with it as well. And again, very similar to Harvey Elliott. It's like, you can't argue with the ultimate end result of what Liverpool achieved. But for him, it really was not a fun year. And considering the previous year, he was out on Hull, and he spent time, I think Leverkusen were trying to buy him this time last summer. And so at that point, when Bayer Leverkusen, who have just won the league, are trying to buy you, you're thinking, okay, well, I clearly am at this level of footballer. And then to just have a year off in the wilderness must have been so frustrating for him. So I really do hope that he can go and find a club that does showcase him. The interesting thing as well is what this means for what Slot is like with youngsters. And I feel like that's a question that has kind of lingered around, because last summer we saw him be quite ruthless with a lot of them. this season. It's only really Conor Bradley who's got any kind of showcasing, but he has nailed his colours to Conor's mast by giving him a new 4-year contract. So he will say, well, look, clearly when you're a good enough young player, I still play you. But for the others, and for maybe some of the others coming through, Rio Ingamoas and some others like that, Trainioni, there's going to be some interesting looks at how the younger group are treated this summer. But I think he will continue to be ruthless, and I think hopefully he will continue to get results. So they will have to just hope that they're on the right side of that.
I think there's an LFC issue, though, that the manager has to consider, and I'm sure he will be in harmony with them on, which is the pathway thing. If we want to attract the best young talent, and we attracted Rio Engamoa and Trainioni, we poached them from other Premier League clubs based on our track record of providing pathways. So I do think that has to be borne in mind. I get that the manager will be ruthless and goes, well, if you're not at the level, we're not going to indulge you. But that's why I think for Rio, it could be Rio Engamoa's breakthrough season or last season at Liverpool. Same could apply to Trainioni. Stefan Bajcetic is one, we really have no sense of how the manager's going to view him.
No.
And again, he needs to have a breakthrough year at Liverpool, or I think it'll be his last year on our books.
From the players' point of view as well, those two players that you've mentioned there, well, they make big decisions to come to Liverpool. Like Rio in particular leaves Chelsea. I probably could have gone anywhere. It was a real coup for Liverpool to get him, but he'll be looking at it and thinking, well, we'll have, are things different now? What are my sort of pathways? And so it's not just from Liverpool's point of view, it's from their point of view as well. Are they getting what they were sold? What they were sold was Jurgen Klopp, who apparently was it 71 players he gave debuts to, which is like unbelievable. So I think from their point of view, they'll be looking at it. It is an interesting one for the manager, how he does sort of look at it. I think you're right to say that there maybe will be a little bit of a pressure on him, but at the end of the day, he picks the team and his stock can't be any higher, and so he can ignore that pressure if he chooses to, and he can ignore the fact that it will sort of have a knock-on effect, in terms of how Liverpool are able to attract these players in the future. He can make decisions based on that knowledge if he chooses to, and at the end of the day, sort of no one's going to stop him because it's within his remit. But I think all of us, in different ways would like to see, do like to see young players given opportunities in the right moments, and do like to see them sort of flourish. And I think for those two, they do look really talented. And he's come out and really praised James McConnell in the past, and we didn't see a ton of minutes on the back of it, but he really went to town after one game. I can't remember which game it was now.
PSV, was it?
Was it? And praising his quality and everything that he had, and showing he's ready. And so I think he's one who... Yeah, they could decide to loan him out, but I'd be shocked unless a really big fee came in for him in the summer, that he'd be moved on, because the manager does seem to really like him. And for the other two, Rio and Trey, you just hope there's sort of minutes out there throughout the season, and obviously this could sometimes come down to look at the draw in cups, in Carabao Cups, in the Champions League. I don't think we'll be working quite as hard next year to finish top, I think it is fair to say. And so but how early can that be sort of put to bed? All those little things. It was luck. We were talking about luck before with Harvey, and that comes through to it for them. But I think the one interesting one for me is Endo, and I think he's the one where I think there will be a bit of an Endo exception, because I think I talked before about them wanting the best players in every position. I think January, February, it looked to me like he was definitely going to go, but I think he's the one where the manager has started to see the real value of, as a finisher in games, but also his attitude and where he's at. And so I think this idea of having, only the very, very, very best if you want to play for Liverpool, I think Endo will be one. And listen, this isn't to talk him down too much, because I think he's a good player, but I think there'll be an Endo sort of compromise, if you like, from both manager and player, because he seems happy with the role in a way that maybe others aren't. Endo certainly seems, but the manager, I think, has warmed to Endo in a way that maybe he wasn't necessarily expecting to.
And I think he can also tell the story of him being someone who has changed the manager's mind. So any other players who are on the fringes and maybe frustrated about where they are, he can say, well, look, I felt like this way about Endo, and he kind of changed my mind. So if it's not beyond you to do the same thing. Well, I don't want to talk too much because obviously we're literally about to do Transfer Committee show, and I feel like I will be going over the same ground.
It's right, Mo. Nicely segued. You can listen to that. That'll be out probably later today, maybe first thing tomorrow morning, no later than that. The last one that we're going to do. These gentlemen of Sol Kelleher, whether they like it or not, early straight out the gate, unlike the other ones. That's all sorted out. So we will crack on and we'll get that done. Thank you very much indeed for Paddy for looking after the images if you've watched this, Andy for looking after the audio if you've listened to it, to Mo, to Rob, and to John all the way through. We are taking stock, but I'd be surprised if by the end of the week we're not counting them in. See you later on.